Thank you for the introduction, George. You've had multiple experiences in KPMG as well as other organizations like the UN, World Bank, NGOs like PACT, and you've had the chance to no doubt work with a variety of diverse teams and individuals across these different organizations. What would you say are some of the characteristics and skills you've observed in global mindset leaders during your time in these teams?
Thanks, James. This is a new and nice experience for me. So I think everybody around us knows that you're graduating from Georgetown in a couple of days, which we're all very proud of. But I start there because teams are built on the foundations of where you come from. And what I can say generally is a thread of all the kind of environments you've mentioned. Let's say the firm. We have 255,000 people in the firm. I would say about 60 to 70% of those are 35 or younger. And in the US, we have to recruit about 10,000 people a year from campus. So the demographics just in our single firm is definitely younger. So what we see across all of those kind of cohorts coming in, both in the US and globally, are probably three things that really stand out, that really become kind of cornerstones for people to become leaders in their own right over time. So one is adaptability, and I'll come back to some of these and unpack them. Second is an ability to build resilience, both personally and professionally. And then the other one is being, which is often underrated or really not recognized, is being self-aware. Who am I? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Where can I improve and where can I add value? So those three, there's a lot of other things that we can get to, but those are the three that really stand out to me in all the environments you mentioned, but particularly within the firm, both in the US and around the world.
Excellent. And based on those three, so adaptability and resilience in particular, they all seem like skills and characteristics that can be learned and developed rather than necessarily inherent traits. Are there any strategies or methods or just development cycles you've seen people go through where they've sort of learned these different skills and become leaders over time?
There's certainly things you can nurture. And I think we've been lucky in our family, both my parents and now your extended family, that we come from a more global kind of community. We've grown up in different environments. We operate in different jurisdictions, both in terms of our academic or professional circles. So that kind of builds a degree of inherent ability to adapt. But even if you don't have that, you can adapt even in the context, even if it's more narrow in terms of your kind of ecosystem and what you operate in. So a couple of things would be, everyone is told, always learn, always continue to learn, always continue to evolve in terms of what you see around you. Whatever that surrounding kind of ecosystem looks like, there are always things you can learn. So the obvious ones right now are around technology and how does that play into what I do. And some people will say, well, I manufacture this or I serve that, and therefore really what's the role of technology in my environment? There is a role in everything across all sectors, all jurisdictions that can be embraced and used in terms of being adaptable, but also being opportunistic in seizing those changes. So that would be one. Another would be where you start building resilience is, it's not about failing fast. You hear that a lot around just try new things, and if you fail, move on, etc. That's all true. There's a lot of kind of schools of thought around how that builds resilience. But I think where I'm focusing is more around on the personal level. You have to understand your impact on those around you. If you want to develop into a leader, what kind of leader would I be? How do I evolve into something that is recognized as a leader, even if I don't have the title? So building resilience over time is more kind of the building blocks to creating that sense of you being a leader in the future. So I'll give you a quick example. So we have a cousin who was a naval commander in the US Navy. He's now retired. And he did a lot of courses around management. He was focused on supply chain and logistics in the Navy. And he was from the officer class. So in the military, you have an inherent difference between the officer class and then everyone else. So there's an immediate structural change or division between those two blocks. But within the officer class, they start to identify characteristics and those who display those characteristics throughout their early career as an officer. So some are going to be those who lead from the front. They kind of may not say a lot, but they do a lot. And those others will follow them in that regard. Then you have others who are called servant leaders. So they have more of a quiet disposition, perhaps. They may be a little bit more introverted. But the people around them will literally go through walls with them because everything is about empowering the team around them. So the power of the team is always going to be more than the power of an individual. And there are many other different types of leaders that the military kind of seek out and then promote over a career. So our cousin, Mike, has been really kind of sharing that wisdom over 40 years in the Navy to understand a leader is not one thing. It's a lot of different things. So that's why being self-aware and building that resilience over time allows you to accentuate your own personal characteristics, your own strengths, and identify where you can add value over time.
Excellent. Thank you. So now, moving away from the general broad sense of things, let's narrow into your area of expertise, global development and finance, especially in your recent work at KPMG. So what would you say are some of the opportunities and challenges that global leaders might face in either of those industries going forward? Because they're bound to, at the moment, they're incredibly important. But as we draw closer to the 2050 deadlines for sustainability objectives, 2030 as well, those will become ever more present on people's minds. So what would you say are some of the opportunities and challenges?
Well, I'll let you into a little secret, James, that it's the job of every single parent to worry about the next generation. That's just, it goes with the job.
Right.
There was an article I read about a month ago that kind of went into more detail what that looks like. If you go back to the parents who were born in the 1910s, 1920s, and they had their kids who came through the Great Depression in the 1930s, they were in despair of their opportunities. They regarded the kids who were coming of age in the 1930s as literally lazy layabouts. Well, those lazy layabouts then created a path to victory against fascists, 10 years later, and then created, the greatest generation. So it's just inherent in what those who have a little bit more years under them have in terms of their expectations for the next generation coming forward. That has not changed, and it probably will never change. It's human nature. But I think the circumstances and the content of what they worry about obviously does adjust over the various generations. So right now, I think where we see a lot of caution, we should perhaps reframe that. So a lot of the cautions come in use of technology. We have people who have either come of age in the digital age or have literally come from the cradle with a phone in their hands. It's just something difficult for those who are 40 plus, 50 plus to really grasp what that means. So let's just reframe that, though. That's a general caution that is inherent in older to younger generations. If you put those two together, experience isn't just years on the block. Experience is experience. So those who are experiencing technology and have lived and breathed it, even if they might be young in age, their experience in using that technology is probably superior than somebody like me. So you got to put those two together and understand you can get just somebody who is older, kind of seen a few things, maybe a bit skeptical of the world, but somebody who has real in-depth personal identification use of technology. Put those two together, then you can be positive, then you could be opportunistic, then you could be more creative. So I think I'd like to reframe that in terms of less of challenges and more around how do you embrace the challenge and make best use of cross-generational strengths and put those together.
Okay, awesome. All right. And you've already given plenty of advice already, but any closing remarks, any advice you have yet to share that you'd like to quickly go over?
There's a couple of truisms that I've been told in my life that I think will, be ever present and true going forward. One is, and this is where a senior partner, when I became partner 14 years ago told me at the time. It was kind of an interview, but not really an interview. It was one of those kind of just look you in the eye and tell you, don't muck it up sort of conversations. And what he said to me was, whatever you do, no matter how good you are at something, there's always somebody better. So his real punchline was, never be an island. Never feel that you have to do it alone. Always seek out others and their expertise. Even if you don't like what they have to say, it's just a different point of view. And then in the context of not being an island, when you truly need your network to help you, when something is not going the way you want it to, they're the people you draw on, or they will actually come and provide their support to you. So it's good to be confident. It's good to have belief in what you have to offer. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying nobody in any leadership position got there alone. Nobody. So never, ever be an island, and embrace those that you've met along the way.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming in today and supporting the Future Global Leaders program. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you, James. Good to see you.
You too.